Okay, thanks everybody. Welcome to our October 11th meeting of the 250 Water Street Working Group. I'm State Senator Brian Kavanaugh, for those who may be watching at home. This group is co-convened by the offices of Congressmember Jerry Nadler, Assemblymember Yuli New, the Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, Councilmember Chris Marte, and Community Board 1. We've been typically meeting the second Tuesday of every month. We try to keep these meetings to no more than 90 minutes. And as has already been noted, the meetings are recorded and posted after they're complete. So today's agenda, which was distributed, includes our usual update on the Brownfield Cleanup Program and updates from our community consultants, and then stakeholder discussion and Q&A. And I think we are going to have some update on noise with some factual information from the DEP, the city DEP today as well. So unless there are any preliminary comments or questions from any of the co-conveners or anybody else. Okay, then without further ado, I think we'll have DEC up first.
All right. Good morning. As most of you know, I'm Heidi Dudek. I am with the Department of Environmental Conservation, Division of Environmental Remediation, and I am the section chief for the 250 Water Street Brownfield Cleanup site. With me today is Department of Health, my Bureau Director, Gerard Burke, and our project manager, Rafi Alam. Work has been continuing as it has been for the last several months on the 250 Water Street Brownfield Cleanup Project. I like to refer to this as phase one. This is the first set of the work that was the remediation of the mercury hotspot area and the former petroleum area where there were underground storage tanks. We have been continuing to work with HHC and Langan Engineering and Laura Dodge and Tom Facillo, who are the community consultants, to ensure that the 250 Water Street project has the work has been completed in a manner that's both protective of human health and the environment. I'm sure that Langan, I don't want to take their thunder, but work is almost done on phase one. They are in the last throes of the actual remediation work that would be done during this phase as they are backing up out of the hole. Work has been continuing in a safe manner and protective of human health and the environment, and DEC has continued to provide 100% oversight through this phase. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Langan, and they can provide more details on the work that's actually been completed in the last 3 weeks.
Great. Thanks, Heidi. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up? Awesome.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike. All right, so this presentation is actually pretty short today as we're getting towards the end of our work on phase one, as Heidi said. I think everybody knows me as well, but Mimi Ray Gordetsky, principal at Langan and responsible for the Brownfield Cleanup Program and cleanup on this site. Next. All right, so since we met about 3 weeks ago, a few things have happened. One, the underground storage tanks have been removed and disposed of off-site. We have completed the remediation in the petroleum impacted area. And we've also backfilled the former petroleum impacted area. The backfilling effort is complete as well. Next. Just to give a little camp summary, as everyone is aware, anytime soil is disturbed on the site, we perform community air monitoring at multiple stations around the perimeter of the site. In the last 3 weeks, we had PM10 exceedances on 2 days between September 13th and October 10th. And the exceedances were not the result of soil intrusive activities at the site. Rather, they were caused by construction equipment in proximity to camp stations. And this happens often when there's either a generator or a vehicle that's proximate to the camp stations and is exhausting in the general direction of the camp station. There were no 15-minute average concentrations for mercury vapor or volatile organic compounds that approached or exceeded the action levels established by the camp. And the camp will continue to be implemented as required through the week of October 17th. And we'll get to this detailed schedule in just a minute. Next. I think as everyone is aware, and you've seen this figure before, every 900 square feet of excavation and remediation, we will collect and have been collecting an endpoint sample. The endpoint samples serve to verify the concentrations of constituents of concern that might remain in place after remediation is complete. So you can see that during phase 1, all of the samples in gray and green will be collected. To date, we've collected all of the samples in green, and those samples meet the track 2 remediation criteria. In the areas of gray, the results are still pending confirmation that track 2 have been met. So more data to come, but we're getting there. More green on this figure than the last time. Next. And as everyone, well, I think everyone's aware, but perhaps not, for the phase 1 remediation area, any of those 900 square foot areas that meet track 2 soil cleanup objectives will remain in place in their remediated condition. And this is how that soil will remain during the construction pause between phase 1 and phase 2. Areas that have not fully met track 2 will be covered with a minimum of 1 foot of DEC approved backfill above a demarcation layer. And that's a visible membrane so that if anyone does disturb that layer, it will be very clear where the remaining soil exists. We expect perhaps only areas in the wrap to not fully meet track 2, but we'll see as the results continue to come in. To be clear, foam will no longer be applied following installation of this temporary cover. So that exercise has already ceased in areas that meet track 2. And once a temporary cover system is in place, they will fully cease. Next. And here's our anticipated schedule. So for the week of 10-11, which we are in, additional excavation will be performed in select areas to achieve track 2 remediation criteria. And those would be those gray areas that you saw in the figure that we just looked at. We'll continue to backfill deep excavation areas to bring the soil to just above the groundwater table. And we'll start demobilizing the dewatering system and equipment. Next week, the week of 10-17, we'll be installing the temporary covers in any areas that have not met the track 2 soil cleanup objectives. And we'll have a final demobilization of equipment from the site. And that is it. We're getting there.
Thank you, Mimi. Do we want to, any questions? I can't see the full group because the schedule's still on primarily. There we go. So no, I don't see any questions or comments at this stage. I have a couple, but I think I'll hold them till the further presentations. AKRF, you have an update?
Hi, good morning. Let me just share my slides. I'm Elizabeth Mead. I'm the archaeologist with AKRF. We've been talking about kind of our ongoing monitoring effort at the site during the remediation work. So I'm just going to give you a quick update on kind of what we've observed. At the last meeting, we talked about how we had started to find essentially 2 types of archaeological resources. One was an artifact deposit within Peck Slip. I have a very brief update about that. And the other was that we were starting to observe landfill retaining structures in the northeast corner of the site. And I'll kind of get into both of these in a little more detail. So first of all, just like I said, a brief update on the artifact deposit. That analysis is still ongoing. There's not much to report yet. We still have a ways to go with cataloging and figuring everything else out. Though we were able to show some photos of the ceramics that were recovered to an expert in local stoneware. And the current belief is that they do consistently date to kind of the mid to late 18th century, so maybe 1740s through the 1770s. Again, we're still completing that analysis. This is just kind of a very preliminary conclusion, but was worth sharing. So we'll continue that work and hopefully in the future have a more advanced update for you. And then to kind of just regroup about the landfill structures that we've been observing, just to kind of recap what these structures are and what function they served throughout history. As you can see on the map on the right, the original extent of Lower Manhattan was a lot narrower than it is now. All these orange areas on this map from 1865 represent historical landfill. So that's artificially created land designed to expand Manhattan's waterfront. This was done essentially by either constructing really large timber boxes essentially and filling them with dirt to support the new land, or by incorporating existing waterfront structures like docks and piers and wharves into the land, ground surface for later development. You can see this map on the bottom left shows where the original water line ran through the site. So about the southern half of the site, or the eastern half, is kind of the clear landfill deposit. And if you recall at the last meeting, we did start to observe some of these timber features within the wall along Water Street. That was as much as we'd seen thus far, but in the final weeks of remediation, as the soil levels got lower and lower, we did start to see a lot more of these features. There were many of these timber elements. You could see the images on the right. So individual timbers that were, formed together as part of structures were observed. They were limited to a small area in the northeast corner of the site. They were not extensive across the entire site. They were observed in just a small limited area. They were not found to be in association with really dense artifact concentrations. So the peck slip artifacts that we showed earlier are really the majority of what we've collected so far. Part of the artifact collection was hindered a little bit by the presence of the contaminated soil and the use of the foam. So we did have to use sort of alternative documentation methods that were outlined in the work plan that was approved by LPC for working in the contaminated soils. And as we were observing these things, these structures, and documenting things using these alternative methods, we were in constant communication with LPC to make sure that they were on board with our strategies, and they were. So they approved of everything as we went. So just to give you a sense of the types of timbers that we were seeing, prior to about the 1850s, there really was no regulation for how these types of landfill structures were constructed. So older types of landfill tend to have more variability. And we were definitely seeing that in the timbers that we were observing. You can see in this image, there's a lot of variation in size, some really narrow timbers, some much larger in diameter. And what was also interesting is that it wasn't processed lumber. This wasn't milled timber. You can see the piece of wood right in the front looks more like a tree. And there were lots of branches and knots that were visible. So this looked like it was more probably not improvised, but not a heavily processed timber feature that was constructed, which may indicate that it is on the older side. And our process for documenting in the contaminated soil essentially was to take lots of photographs, video of the timbers as they came out so that we could reconstruct how they were built, how the timbers fit together. We took notes of things like notches and ridges that would show how the individual pieces fit together. And we also collected timber samples. So as the timbers came out, we selected a few for sampling. We directed the construction team to cut us off essentially a big slice, a cross section from several timbers selected at random based on, we tried to get a variety of different sizes, things like that. So we collected 5 timber samples total from that northeast corner. We're going to submit them to a laboratory for tree ring dating and analysis, which can help us try and determine when these trees grew, which can help to infer when the features themselves were constructed. Now, because these samples were in the petroleum contaminated soils, we did have to essentially come up with a strategy for cleaning them off. So the AKRF hazmat group was able to help us with that. We were able to do some on-site treatment of the timber samples so that they gave clean readings, and we were able to transport them off-site. So they are currently stored in our lab. And we're in talks with the tree ring dating analysts that we typically work with to try and find a time to transfer them up there for the analysis. So there's no real timeline on that yet. It's going to depend on the lab's availability, but we are actively working on that. And you can see these images on the right are just 2 samples of the 2 examples of the samples that we took. They're quite large, very, very heavy. You can see the timber on the right almost has a Swiss cheese look. We think that's probably a sign of shipworms, which are a destructive mollusk that burrow into wood. So it's not actually a worm. They leave a trail of shell behind them. So if we can find samples of that shell still present, we should be able to identify the species. So lots of analysis that's pending that'll start to begin now that kind of the on-site work is winding down. And just to give you another example of, or to make it clear where these structures were found, as I mentioned, they were really limited to the corner. You can see on this map from 1749 on the right that there was sort of a little notch, a cutout in the original bulkhead wall of Peck Slip, and that's kind of where we're finding them. So the tree ring dating is really going to help us to confirm when these structures were built and to link them to specific phases of development. It would be particularly interesting if the timbers kind of lined up with the date of the artifacts that we found in Peck Slip just outside. So all that research is ongoing, and we should have a kind of a more substantial conclusion once all that work is concluded. So just to kind of summarize, we collected a lot of data that will help us to inform the rest of the monitoring, which is going to continue throughout the rest of the construction and excavation on the site. So the archaeology is ongoing. We'll use this pause to kind of get caught up on the analysis. And then as excavation continues, so will the monitoring.
Great, thank you for that presentation and the others as well. We do have a couple of people with hands raised. Are these questions for now? Do you want to jump in, Adam, and then Aileen?
Well, this was related. I put my hand up and related to the previous segment on the construction timetable, and I put the question: is weekend work? Are we done with weekend work? It's
yes.
It's been unclear when that was ending.
Yes,
because we still get the updates from Ricky that make it seem like there is weekend work with equipment getting moved around.
Other than site maintenance, there's no work planned for this weekend. And we don't, and then the other weekends this fall, we don't expect that as well.
Can you, when you say site maintenance, please clarify, because that is a loose term, and these emails going out to residents is very unclear. Like, we need to be explicit, like what is going out in these updates, because people see site maintenance equipment moving around. It's just unclear. Like, it needs to be further defined in these emails going out from Ricky, because people see like site maintenance dewatering and they don't know what to expect. Like, so please.
Yeah, can we get just a little clarity now? Like, what does site maintenance entail?
We expect site maintenance to be foam installation. It could be some cleanup from time to time with equipment, but it's not intended that we're trucking. It's not intended that we're doing any significant work. Just a minimal amount of work to make sure that the site is safe through the weekend and maintaining the site as we are required to through this process, so that there's no exposed soil, etc., until that is all signed off and complete, as most of it is at this point.
So you're not you're not scheduling, it's
We're not
just sort of to
scheduling
deal with
significant
issues
work,
that
no.
arise on weekends. You might be on the site to address them.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adam, is that what you're looking for? Do you want to,
I mean, just make it clear what that means when the email goes out. I don't know how many people are on Ricky's email address, but it gets forwarded around to people in Southbridge, and they're like, we don't know what this means. Like when they say moving equipment around, etc. So just say, hey, some equipment might be moved. There is no scheduled work except if we need to take care of issues. I'm just asking for a little bit more explicit on that, and just putting what was just said into that email, because people are asking questions and they're confused by those emails.
okay, so that's something you guys can work on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, again, I think there's only probably one more weekend where it's relevant, where we're going to be sending this type of notice. So we'll encapsulate what Greg described. And I believe we have been pretty specific in the past at these meetings and in some of our letters. So, anyway, that's something we'll certainly address going forward to the extent it's relevant.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Elaine.
They are drilling behind me at the moment. I'll save my questions for later. They should be on lunch break by then.
Okay, well, that was perhaps an excellent segue to our next topic, which is noise. I was going to say, let's make some noise for DEP, but I won't. All right. But DEP, you want to give us a report on?
Brian, I'm sorry. Brian, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time raising my hand. I'm on a phone and a computer. Can I ask a question?
You have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that. My computers are trying to revolt one at a time. So over the past few weeks, there's been considerable talk about how much the site smells, and lots of people, kids talking about having headaches, people who live nearby saying that their apartments are filled with odors of petroleum. So not gas, not like the egg smell, but definitely petroleum. And there was talking to a couple moms who feel like they're getting gaslighted. When you're there, there's definitely an odor. And the reports that were coming back say there is no odor. So it doesn't feel great to the families it's sort of like saying you don't see that when you do see something. It's a hard thing for people to sort of, whether or not it's a toxic smell is sort of a different question. But is it possible that the smell people are experiencing is from the foam? Is it the dewatering? I mean, I know that there's been some questions about maybe where some of the smells might be coming back from, but if we can get some clarity about the smells, and I know it's a hard thing to sort of nail down because they come and go, but the community feels really unheard. I mean, I have like 30 different WhatsApp things, and when I see families, they talk to me about it. So what can I tell them about that?
Hi, Megan. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. This is Heidi Dudek from DEC. I think the first thing that you need to do is to direct the families to call the hotline number, because we have been responding to DEC has been responding to anybody who has reported odors. We've sent folks over to determine if the smells or the odors that they have are coming from the site. One of the things to note is that currently there is no, all the petroleum work, which we do realize that there, and as Laura Dodge had said, it's, a cleanup of a petroleum spill, there is going to be some odors, and they were using the foam to try to mitigate that to the extent that was possible. That work has been completed for about a week now. So there should be no odors that are associated with the site now. They did bring in clean fill, and that may have like an earthy type smell, but that's just clean earth coming in. As far as anything else, I mean, the first thing to do is to have them call it in, because we do have folks that are on site that go in and address it, or, you know, try to determine where it's coming from and what it may be, as soon as possible. So that would be my first response to the parents on that. Laura,
I've been very clear about telling them that that's what we should be doing, that we should be making sure that we're filing reports. And it just doesn't, I'm reporting that, I'm just telling everyone here at the table that the families there are reporting the smells. They're saying they smell stuff. I smell stuff. And then they're being told there is no smell. So it's a conundrum. The reporting it on the hotline, I'm not sure if it's helping, but.
Megan, who is saying there are no smells?
So there was a report that there was a report that Laura submitted to CB1. And honestly, like right now, just before hi Laura, when Heidi was speaking, Heidi was saying that, you know, we've got people there and there are no smells. So like,
right.
that's a hard pill to swallow, right? For people who are smelling.
Yeah, if I could just chime in. So I was reached out to because there were some concerns of odors, both at Peck Slip and then later at Southbridge Towers. And, you know, first I reiterated that, again, the 311 should be called, the Howard Hughes hotline should be called, so that those complaints are registered and documented with the larger group. But regardless, even though that wasn't done at first, I then reached out to Langan. I asked Paul McMahon from Langan to check out the site conditions, which he did. And then Rafi Alam, who was on site from DEC, we pulled DEC and DOH in, and as Heidi indicated, there were, you know, ground verification of the absence of any odors from around the perimeter of the site. And then there was an apartment, I think on Beekman Street, where the residents had specifically complained, and Representative Langan and Rafi Alam from DEC went into the apartment and didn't notice anything when they were there. So, you know, one of the concerns and one of the problems is no one's trying to gaslight anybody, but if, you know, I was reached out to twice with these complaints, and even though the order of how I was reached out to wasn't adhered to, I still responded and we still got to the bottom of it. And, you know, sometimes odors like this can be passing, and I think that might be one of the issues. So if someone's smelling something at one moment, they might not be able to, someone else who comes later and checks it may not smell anything. But these are not odors that are, you know, a concern from an inhalation hazard perspective, because there's still the ongoing community air monitoring for volatile organic compounds, which would be any of the types of odors that are being described would fall into that category. So if there was anything of concern from a human health perspective, and we're talking about action levels here that are not adverse health levels to begin with, these are just levels at which, you know, action would then be taken to determine what's going on. But as Heidi indicated, the petroleum impacted soil excavation, actually, I believe, Mimi, was completed about 2 weeks ago, not just last week. Yeah, and what was happening last week, which potentially could have caused some type of momentary odor, was the dismantling of the dewatering system equipment. It's possible that there might have been some odors related to that. Not saying that that's what was smelled, but, you know, I don't think anyone's trying to say that that when someone complains that there's an odor, that the odor wasn't observed. I mean, I think it's fair to say that some people are very sensitive to certain odors. So we could both be in the same location and I might smell something you might not, and vice versa. But if there is something going on, it could be passing and not necessarily a continuous odor, and therefore hard for people to ground truth that is actually what's being experienced. But there are still boots on the ground at the site. The Langan staff, DEC has been on the site the entire time. And whenever there's a complaint that comes in, as Heidi indicated, if it goes through 311 and Howard Hughes hotline, if I'm pulled in, if Tom Facilis pulled in, we're gonna help try to get to the bottom of it. But those calls have to be made so that there is a documented record. And I think it would really help people to respond faster if that's the process that's, you know, strictly adhered to. So it kind of puts me and Tom and others at a disadvantage when we don't find out until after the fact. And even if it's an hour later, it's sometimes going to be difficult to determine whether or not a secondary person is going to be able to verify those odors. So I don't think we're saying, I've never said that these are not odors that someone has noticed. The question just is, are they related to the site activity that's, you know, going on at the time? And are they of an environmental concern in terms of a human health risk? The latter question is no. Are they nuisance odors? I think they would fall into that category. And we've already addressed the fact that nuisance odors need to be addressed. And I think all the protocols on the site have been done to try to minimize and mitigate any of these nuisance odors. And that's where the foam comes in. If it's a dewatering tank when it was being dismantled, you know, that's a very short-lived thing and it's not going to be repeated again. And as everyone's mentioned, because the petroleum impacted soil excavation is now complete, and that large excavation that was dewatered is now completely backfilled with clean soil, there's not going to be anything going on at the site that should generate any odor that would fall into an odor that should cause any kind of nuisance situation. So if there are people that are still smelling things, are still experiencing odors, even now, then I would, again, call the hotline. DEC's on site, Langan's still on site. And as soon as they are aware, they've been checking it out. And that's what we're going to continue to do until the site is demobilized.
I think so. What I'll do is I'll share with everyone.
I just want to say the department has put 2 people out there for the work that was going on. We have reacted to every odor complaint. We're in a meeting with the principal of the Blue School while work was going on, so he could indicate when odors were occurring. Rafi Alam has gone into private residences to work on this issue. So we haven't gaslighted anybody. We take every complaint very seriously. We've gone, like I said, we've had 2 people on site when we, on a lot of brownfields, that one person on site is almost a little more than we usually do. So I just want to let everybody know that we take every odor complaint seriously. We work to eliminate any odors, and that's I just wanted to get that out there.
No, that's great, and we see all that. I guess my suggestion is probably never saying to someone they don't smell something, but I would suggest that perhaps what we can say is we do know for sure that it's not harmful, and so I guess maybe that was the interpretation that gets sort of taken away, is that you probably do smell something, and it's going to happen from time to time. But I think what I'm going to be really clear about to anyone, to the folks that listen or who are going to on our WhatsApp group, is just that as of today, right, Laura, and you guys are saying, is that there should be no more petroleum involvement smells, and this should be a real change in how it's being experienced for the residents and for the kids at school, right? Like starting this week should be really different.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
the
actually,
petroleum, yeah, go ahead.
Laura.
No, I was just gonna say the
I was
petroleum impacted soil was completed 2 weeks ago. So in the recent week, though, I think during backfilling, as long as the water table is exposed, there could be some type of earthy like odors, not just the clean fill being brought in, but just whenever you're down below the water table, there could be some odors that residents are probably not used to smelling, because it's not a common everyday occurrence that you have an excavation open that deep. So these could be things that people are just they don't know what it is, and of course they're going to react and think that it's a potential hazard. But we've made it clear in every email I've ever sent, I always bring in the fact that the camp is continuing to be in use, and there's been no issues with respect to any levels of concern on any of the meters, including the volatile organic meter, the PID, which measures volatile organic compounds, which would be the class of compounds you would expect if there was anything oil or petroleum related that was, causing an odor. And so we haven't seen any of that. And so there is no adverse health issue here. There is no hazard related to the air quality. I mean, I think we've repeated that over and over from the beginning. And every time I comment on what was observed, I always bring that fact front and center to try to address the concerns.
And Laura, just to piggyback on that, Megan, I mean, the main thing here is that, we have a concern that somebody has an odor they've observed. And then the importance also, not only for documentation purposes of following procedures and calling the 311 and the hotline, is to ensure that it can be reacted to faster, since these are or can be passing odors, so that we could actually identify what the odor is. Is it associated with the site? And if it's gone already, it's hard to make that association. So if they, if you can emphasize to them, if they're asking you to really follow that process, so that we can actually get to the bottom of it and see what the odor they're observing is, so that, we can give, them some sort of an understanding of what it is. And it's not to tell them that we don't believe them if we don't observe it, but if we don't observe it, we don't observe it. So time is of the essence there with that. And again,
Right.
It's, these aren't things that we consider to be a major health concern, but it is a concern to the community, and it's something we take very seriously, every complaint. So get them in there. If people notice it, let us know, so that we can actually react.
Thank you, Scarlett. And I'll ask them to be very mindful about the time that they're smelling it, because sometimes they're like hustling out of there with kids and stuff, and it's hard to make that call at that moment. So I'll just make sure that I try to have them do it as quickly as possible, and also be very mindful of what time they experienced it, so that you guys can have accurate reports. I mean, I can tell you that last Wednesday at 4 p.m., a bunch of people were saying that it smelled a bunch. Maybe that had to do, I don't know what that had to do with, clearly, just guessing. Anyway, I will make sure that I reiterate that to folks when they're filing their complaints, that they're very clear about what they're smelling, where they are, and when they smelled it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be
the tricky part. Yeah, the other tricky part is, and this is what I think we observed, when Noah Reinhardt was experiencing odors higher up at a higher elevation than the ground level, is it's possible that, depending on what's going on, some of what might be an odor that's unfamiliar to the community may not be necessarily observed on ground level at that particular moment either, because of wind patterns and things like that. And I think that was partly what was happening with the Blue School when the petroleum excavation area was being worked on. But since that work now has been completed, and it's been more than 2 weeks, the backfilling activities are all done. Really, there should not be significant issues in terms of nuisance odors. But again, the importation of clean fill, and I just wanted to also say that in Langan's presentation, Mimi used the term DEC approved fill is being brought in to have a 1-foot cover across the site, so that there's what that basically means is it's clean. So there's clean soil being brought in. It's approved by the DEC because it's clean. So you're going to have clean soil cover across the site under, on top of that demarcation layer. So that's why no foam is going to be needed. There shouldn't be any odors whatsoever. But people should be aware that when you do bring clean fill in and you place it and grade it, that there could be sort of like that earthy, musty odor that could come off of that material. So that's something that I'm glad Heidi brought up, because that is something that could also be observed by the community, because it's not something that you commonly will experience, in Lower Manhattan.
Last thing about the smells and stuff, it seems that there's a lot of trucks idling in the morning before they get into the lot. If we could just ask the trucking companies to make sure that they're turning off their trucks before they're going in. I mean, I get that they're staging, but it's been noted that they continue to idle for a while in the morning.
Yeah, we'll follow up with Langan on that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have to get onto another call at noon that was added to my schedule, sort of an emergency situation. But I know there's still some folks with hands up.
Yeah, can we maybe just do quick, Jason and then Maggie?
Yeah, I just had a question about, knowing the way that petroleum or old gassy gas, old dirt. Why did we not put some monitors up, on the 4th floor roof of these buildings if the stuff is known to go up? I smelled it. It smelled like a gas station to me. I mean, I'm just a layman, and it happened a bunch of times. And, I'm one of these guys who kind of says, oh, it's okay. And then my wife's one of these people saying like, they're murdering us with these fumes. So to those people that are more like my wife, is the statement that those are just likely to be, what do you call them? Nuisance odors.
Nuisance odors, right.
And
Yeah,
then
I
what's
don't.
the answer to why we weren't having the monitors a higher level, being that the site's not capped in any way?
Well, because
Well,
the ground.
part of it, oh, go ahead, Laura.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, you answer it, honey.
It's part of it is that the odors are different than the actual, the concentrations that could cause health issues if they were there are being monitored by the camp, and they're going to be close to the source. So that's where we need to monitor them to make sure that there isn't anything there that could cause any health concerns. What happens is that the odors associated with that, which are, again, aren't toxic to human health in that, the way that they dissipate in the wind and the way that they go could be different. And I think that's what Laura was getting at. They can tend to go, if the wind is coming up, they may come up out of the site and into the upper levels, which was what the issue was. But again, at the source where they were actually originating, that's the most important place to be measuring it, to make sure that there isn't anything that is in the air that is of any health concern. That's why our monitors are down at that level.
Yeah, I
Right,
would just
and so-
also just add on top of what Megan said before, like if there's could be some sort of statement for those of us that don't take everything in the world lightly like me, that says, listen, guys, you may be smelling things that smell like gas. Don't worry, it's this and this. It's just there's so many people out there that they don't have, like Megan said, the time to call 311, and they have a lot of time to worry. And when they smell like it smells like a gas station, they don't know what's going on. And so I get to go to these meetings and you guys tell us all this great backup information, but I can't go out there and disseminate that. And I think things that are said in more layman's terms, like I just said, you're smelling gas, don't worry, your building's not going to explode, or whatever you want to say. And whoever's saying it needs to be transmitted better to the people that kind of live around there, work all day, don't have time to call 311. Etc. So, but thank you for the more information about the odor.
Great. Okay, thank
Sure,
you.
yeah, and we'll make sure about that.
Good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we got a couple of requests for plain language, which is great. Megan?
Brian, do we, if
Maggie.
Laura has to leave at noon, do we want to maybe do her update now?
Oh, sorry, forgive me. Laura, do you
No,
have?
okay. I mean, yeah, basically my update was just what I already said, is that, I just wanted to clarify that the soil that's being brought onto the site, again, sort of a layman term thing, instead of saying DEC approved, that it's clean soil, so that by the time they demobilize, there'll be that clean soil layer. So that's why there's no need for foam or no need to cover that material. And then we did get, PEC slip, parents dropping children off, having concerns, and also some residents at Southbridge Towers raised a concern over the nuisance odors. And so we did react, as I indicated. I suggested they call 311, but in the meantime, immediately reached out to Langan and then to DEC, and then we acted the way we did to try to ground truth what was happening. But at no time were any of the air quality issues of concern from a human health or a risk perspective. These are not. The unfortunate thing is these odors are very, very noticeable at low levels. So well below where there would be any adverse health impact. So even the action levels themselves for the camp are set extremely low. But some people can smell things at lower levels that are so low that they wouldn't even be noticeable with an instrument. And that's what I think a lot of times has been happening. So these are nuisance odors that relate to the subsurface conditions, not necessarily contaminants. just to moisture levels in the soil. The fact that you've got, materials below the water table that have been sitting there for a long period of time. So I know, Maggie, you've got your hand up, and that was basically going to be my update, is that we've been responding. And then I just wanted to reiterate that, to the extent humanly possible, if there's a complaint, the 311 and the hotline should be called, and then Tom Facil and I can do our thing and follow up. It makes it harder for us if we don't have that initial call put in, because there's a delay. And so then we wind up in this situation where we're doing everything we can to try to ground truth what's going on. But we need the support of everybody to work together with these protocols that were set. These have been in place now for months. So not something that should be new.
Good. Thank you, Laura. Maggie, and we also still have Elaine on deck from, hopefully it's quieter there, but would you mind if we just get the other, we're also just supposed to hear from DEP, and I think a lot of folks have been waiting to hear.
Yeah, just a quick question for Laura. How many complaints have you guys been notified about through 311? If they're going directly, do you know, like off the top, like estimated off the top of your head?
Yeah, I've only had the 311 complaints are not coming to me. They're going to DEC, and DEC is responding to them. I've been getting complaints directly, and that's where I'm saying I need those to be followed up on by DEC as well as by us, because I can't be on the site. DEC's on site every day, but we don't, we don't have the resources to be able to be on site every single day. And at this point, there's really no reason for us to be on site, given that everything is really winding down. And as Gerard indicated, DEC's had 2 individuals on site for most of phase 1. Now they've got 1, and Rafael Lam has been, the project manager has been actually the one on site. But whenever the complaint is brought to our attention, I reach out to Langan right away, and they're very responsive. They've been very responsive. They ground truth it with their field people, and then we bring DEC on board. So I don't know how many calls have come into 311. I'd like it to, if there have been calls that have not been responded to, no one is indicating that to me. My understanding is that they're all being responded to.
Okay. Well, I have questions and follow up. I know you have to jump off, and Brian, if you could circle back to me, I had a mom calling me like in tears on Friday saying the odor is really bad. It's not, this isn't like my nose is sensitive and your nose isn't. There's like over 30 people who, as Megan pointed out, have been complaining, have reached out to me, have reached out to Children First, are on the WhatsApp group. So this is really widespread. It's not,
right, but have all of those individuals called? I don't think so, right? I think it was only the one that.
As Jason's pointing out, like everybody's busy. Right? So dealing with 311 is complicated. People don't know the prompts to put in, and then you put in gas and the fire department shows up, but that's not really what it is. And so one of the questions or statements I was going to make is if there was like if somebody could send an email, if there was someone at the DEC that we could if there could be a different process, because this process so far has been really difficult for the community members. And I know some people have reached out directly to you, Laura, and that's not really the chain of command. So if we could just revisit the process. There are odors still. So I know you said work was finished, but this was Friday.
It's not
9
finished.
o'clock. Yeah, but this 4 days ago, people were saying the odor was horrendous, like chemical, petroleum, really, really strong. I'm not there, so I'm just speaking as a representative. But I'm hearing it, and people are bad, so I'm just trying to let you guys know.
Understood, but it's really important that we get the information clearly out there. The work is not finished yet. It's going to be finished by the end of next week. There should be the process of demobilization underway. But right now, there's still work going on. There's some limited excavation. There's still some backfilling going on. There's still the full demobilization of the dewatering system equipment. So that work is ongoing this week into early next week. And then by then, in accordance with the schedule that Langan showed, by the end of next week, it should be done, and everything should be and Mimi, you jump in, all equipment should be demobilized by the end of next week, or?
End of next week, and I will note that the petroleum impacted soil excavation was complete on the 27th. So that was actually well prior to Friday of last week.
Yeah, that's what I was
I
worried.
just also would like to note that Ricky just put the very, very direct line to Howard Hughes and Langan in the chat. And that is really the most immediate way to get a response from Howard Hughes and Langan.
Yeah, I don't think, creating another thing makes sense. We have both the hotline and we have 311, which everyone in New York City is familiar with, and we track that very closely. So I think, we just need to push the community to use those resources, because adding a third is not going to necessarily be helpful. So I would just urge everyone to use what we've made available, both the city 311 and through our hotline, which Ricky can update us on. But I think considering anything else at this point doesn't make sense.
Right.
Do you guys know how many complaints have come through? I see some questions in the chat, just to get a sense of, are the community's complaints reaching out? Are you guys hearing, are you guys hearing it?
Is Ricky on? I don't see him.
Yes, I'm here. I'll take a quick look. I can tell you that on 311, which anybody can check on the 311 site, there's been 28 total complaints varying from noise to smells to construction for this work site in total. But I'll check our hotline to see how many total we've received.
And do we know how many of those 28 are odors, Ricky?
It's specific to odors, it's 4.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
So unfortunately I do have to log off right now, but as I have been doing, when CB1 has also forwarded comments and concerns to me as well, Maggie and Megan, and I've responded to every one of them. And my first step is to call Langan so that I can get Paul McMahon's feedback, because he's got boots on the ground. And then from there, we pull in DEC, DOH if need be, based on whatever's going on and what the complaint specifically was. So we'll continue to do that. But as we've all mentioned, it just is necessary to continue to follow the other protocols as well, so that it's all documented. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry I have to.
Thanks, Laura.
All right. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, so if we don't mind, can we go to DEP? Oh, Elaine, are you trying to get in there?
We can go to DEP and you can get back to me. It's just that it's quiet now here. And there is one issue that's a real concern to me, especially as I'm hearing that we're dismantling equipment. We were reassured that the 2 buildings that extended into the roadway, not the sidewalk, beyond the sidewalk, would be remediated. And that hasn't been done. Nothing has been done beyond the sidewalk.
Okay.
That area, that area is an area that is frequently dug up by Con Ed. Con Ed practically lives there. So I know, Mimi, you're giving me,
No, I honestly, Elaine, I'm not at all. I was reacting to something totally different.
Okay, this was something that's been discussed from the very beginning. And we were assured that this would be taken care of. And now I see that there's no plan on the DEC.
No, I'm sorry. Can I, I'm sorry, Brian, can I?
Yeah, so jump in
Can I
there,
please
please.
respond really quick? Sorry. Hi, Elaine. The dismantling of the equipment is for phase 1 of the remediation of the BCP site. I mean, there's still additional remediation on the other half of the site that will need to be completed. They just have to, in between the phases, remove the equipment. You can't leave it there in between it. With regards to the DEC will be doing an investigation of where the former thermometry factories were within Pearl Street. But that will be completed after the work is currently on, because we can't be in that same area. So it's not that it's not going to be done. It's not part of the Langan work. And at this point in time, they need to dismantle that equipment so that we can go into winter shutdown.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, great.
We're not.
No problem.
It's clear that we're, as other people have said, we don't understand like phase 1, phase 2. So when you say that, Langan is finished at the end, we're thinking all the remediation is finished. So that there would be no ongoing work after the dismantling. So that's part of the confusion. And the other question is just SCO as a cleanup objective. Mimi, could you define SCO for me?
Sure. New York State has certain cleanup criteria that have been in place for some time now. And we, in order to meet track 2 cleanup objectives, have to bring the site down to about 15 feet below grade or deeper, or test soil above that depth and confirm that it meets restricted residential soil cleanup criteria. And there's a bunch of different criteria. There's residential, there's unrestricted use, commercial, etc. So because the proposed use of this site is residential, the cleanup criteria that are applicable are the residential criteria. And those are for soil, just to be specific.
And SCO stands for?
Soil cleanup objective.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I should know that. Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Very helpful to have these questions answered.
Great. Okay.
I
And
assume
now,
the drilling is not coming from us since we're done with construct with that kind of work, Elaine. Is that, hopefully, I mean, I think we're done with the invasive work. So I looked out my window, I didn't see anything. So I just wanted to make sure it's not us, Mimi or Lend-Lease.
You're talking about the noise that was.
Yes, whatever drilling Elaine is hearing is not us doing work, I assume.
I think it's coming, I've heard that it's coming from Southbridge. They
Yes,
have local law 11 work and some other work.
Yeah, exactly. They're
Okay.
pointing the brick on the
Just wanted
side.
to make sure. Thanks, appreciate it.
that was a good clarification. I was assuming that we were hearing the project in real time. So
I would
Okay.
have been screaming if it was coming.
that
from-
was quite an impressively large amount of noise. So
Yes, it is.
okay. Speaking of noise, can we have a report from DEP?
Yes. Hello, Senator. Emily, everyone. It's Umberto Galarza from New York City Department of Environmental Protection, Community Affairs. I've been hearing what's been discussed and taking notes, but regarding DEP, so I'll just start off with, I provided Emily with all the DEP inspection reports. We're talking specifically about noise inspections, brief reports. I just want to say thank you to Emily for modifying it, making it look a little better than what I've sent her. I just checked our database for 301 complaints, and we haven't received the noise construction complaints in October. The last 301 construction noise complaint filed by a resident was on September 21st. However, DEP, as we have stated, we've been proactively inspecting the site. But the last DEP proactive inspections that we did was on October the 3rd, October the 3rd, where inspector went out. We did notice there was construction taking place, and our noise readings registered for that day was 64 decibel, I'll say decibels, reading from the site. It's basically below the threshold, way below the threshold. The other reports, in terms of the noise that we inspected, were included in Emily's email that was sent to the working group. Regarding the sensors, which is something you all are interested in, I provided a brief update, but I guess I'll just go over it. There was a kind of an obstacle where NYU had moved their network sensors, servers. They moved their network servers to another floor. That kind of screwed everything up for So NYC, which is Sounds of New York City. It's a program the University of NYU is working with. So their server had to be backed up and, had to go back online. A lot of things that they had to do in terms of the technical side of things. The conversations I had with Emily where we were trying to, get this information out there, we were, at first, my update would have been to provide you all with historical data showing the noise sensor data from the Blue School and the Peck Slip School. We have as early as June 28th, but mostly August, September. I know you're mostly all interested in September. I was going to say that we can provide you with the historical data within a few weeks or about 2 weeks. We were trying to put it together in a chart or something more legible, something more clear and precise for everyone to read. We don't want to confuse people and make it hard for everyone to read. But as per your request, Senator Emily's, you requested the raw data, and I had just sent that. We were able to get that to you. I just sent an email to Emily. So excuse me if I can't speak on that right now. I just sent her the data. But moving forward, we can work on that a little bit more within the next few weeks. The other update was starting in about November, we will be able to share with you the monthly data, again, collected from both schools, Blue and Peck Slip. And I think that's it for now.
So just a question, there's no way to characterize what the sensors have detected so far?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Senator. Like I said, it's a raw data. I mean, I did get a glimpse of the chart of how our team was trying to put it together, but I can't tell you, I can't read it and explain it to you all. I actually haven't even seen the raw data yet, to be honest with you. So yeah, at this time we can't. I can't go over it.
Sorry, just to be clear, you sent. I know you and Emily had conversations kind of in real time as this.
I apologize.
Getting starting, but you have a chart to share, or?
So we were working on getting something more clear and concise within the next few weeks, but Emily requested the raw data, which I just sent her.
Okay, yeah,
Not
I think that getting us what you have when you have it is great, but it just, we've been having this conversation for a very long time now, and it's perplexing that there's no, that we can't, that sort of there's no data to share, whether it's in the form of a summary chart or, I mean, I hear that so Emily now has all the raw data you have?
That's correct. All the raw data we have. And like I said, we just needed the 2 weeks or so to get everything together to summarize it for you. And so Emily had suggested, you guys wanted some data right away. So I just sent her that. And as I stated, I can't explain it. It's just raw data, a lot of technical stuff. I haven't even looked at everything, but like I said, within the next few weeks, we should be able to provide something a little bit more easier for you to read.
Okay. And you don't mind if we share that with the raw stuff with anybody who's interested?
Absolutely not. I just briefly spoke to Mark Page, Alyssa Preston staff. They said it was okay. So it's just data. However you got.
Okay. Again, I guess we'll see how interpretable it is. There's nothing I like more than crunching data, personally crunching data. So maybe I'll try my hand at that. But again, we really would like to again, DP's been monitoring the site for months now, and we would really. It seems reasonable to expect that there'd be some summary or some indication of what that data says by now. So
I understand, and that's why we provided you with the reports from our inspectors on site, which you can share to everyone. I think it was circulated already.
All right, so we'll post them, and presumably for anyone who's listening to this after the fact, we will also post that material somewhere on our site along with this recording.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments about any of that? Okay. Can we, I think we're supposed to hear from Tom as well. Tom, do you have any?
Thanks, Senator. This is Tom Fusillo representing Blue School. Just a quick update. Blue School did have 1 day of significant significant nuisance odor issues at the very beginning of the excavation of the deeper petroleum contaminated soils within the below the water table. DEC set up a call with Laura Dodge, myself, Langan, and DOH. We had a very open discussion about the issues. I will say that DEC, DOH, and Langan were very responsive, and that was a call decided they needed to really step up the use of foam and basically foam every inch of soil that was being moved, even in the buckets, and that really helped resolve the issue. I think the following morning there was a little bit of an odor issue, but since then I've been in constant contact, daily contact with Noah Reinhardt, the head of school, who's indicated that they have not had significant odor issues through the remainder of the petroleum contaminated soil removal. Nothing that was significant, at least. So that we, certainly Blue School appreciates the efforts that everyone took to try to resolve that. And he's indicated they have not had, at least Blue School has not experienced significant odor issues since that time. Noise has not been a huge issue at Blue School, nothing like what they experienced in May. So the noise levels have not been disruptive to classroom study and learning so far. So again, Blue School appreciates the efforts everyone's making to manage those issues.
Great.
And I know they had meetings scheduled at Blue School this morning, so that Noah apologizes for not being here.
Okay, good. But no, we appreciate your efforts on behalf of the Blue School and the community as well. I see Adam's asking a question about whether the noise levels can be accessed by a live dashboard. I assume you more or less mean as the readings come out.
Pretty much some public, portal, simple, created in Power BI, standard stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, again, that's what I think we were hoping to have, that like some sort of clear presentation available today, and then we could ask the question of how quickly and routinely it can be produced. But just Umberto, you're now getting the data? DEP is now getting the data sort of routinely, more or less in like daily or in real time from this server?
From my understanding, we're getting daily readings, and in November we'll be able to provide you with the monthly data for the month. In terms of transmitting that on a daily basis, I don't know. I would have to take that back. Again, this is like third party, handing off. And also it's a lot, it requires staff. So we were moving forward. Our plan was to provide you every month with that monthly data.
Okay, well, I guess it's hard to have a conversation about data that we haven't looked at, but I guess Adam, if you will, why don't we take a look at, I mean, if the data is such that somebody can't make heads or tails of it without,
I mean, yeah, if it's decibels and just like by monitor location, that would just be good. So if someone goes, oh, it was really loud, then they can just like log in and see how loud was it.
Right.
Because saying it's 56, or I think I heard someone say 64 decibels earlier on, that was the loudest read. That is a good reference point for people to go, oh, it's really loud.
Okay.
It just shows transparency, basically.
Yeah, no, I know,
that also.
and that's the goal here. So, all right, we will take a look as was noted. We now have the raw data. We will share it with everybody and see what you all can make of it, and we'll discuss with DP how sort of frequently and transparently this data can be made available.
Senator, sorry,
yeah, please.
Just to cut in very quickly,
Yep.
I don't want that to discourage anyone from calling 311 if there is a noise disturbance. Just wanted to note that. Thank you.
People should call 311 and the hotline, presumably 917-962-8166. So, we can make sure that that stuff is getting logged. Can we, just a general question. So we're expecting by the end of next week, this phase is done. And we talked a little bit about potential maintenance, including occasional weekend maintenance. What does the site look like after next Friday. But what times of activity? I mean, presumably you're looking forward to resuming construction, moving equipment back onto the site. What is the schedule for the remainder of 2022?
I think there's going to be very little activity. Langan can speak to the specifics, or Greg, in terms of the physical nature of what the site. I think they maybe talked about the covering of the clean fill in certain areas. But I think other than some geotechnical and or environmental soil sampling to inform the work in the future phase, I think it'll be very, very minimal.
Maybe anything to add or?
Nothing to add. I mean, I had explained in my presentation that how the site will be left from an environmental perspective between phases. And we also reviewed how we, in the next week and a half, will be demobilizing from the site. But Adam has it right. The only activities would be potentially geotechnical and environmental borings between now and remobilization in the new year.
Okay, and just another question, and this is one that I feel like I ought to have a better handle on than I do, but so this is phase 1 is being completed. Strictly speaking, this is still a brownfield cleanup project.
It is.
There'll be the subsequent phases. Is there a point at which the sort of cleanup is complete and it's just a construction project, or is it going to be considered
Yes.
a brownfield cleanup throughout the construction?
No, it is. Once Langan has collected the last endpoint samples of the remediation, so when the final excavation is done on phase 2 and they've confirmed they've reached the cleanup objectives for the site, the remedial work will be completed. They'll submit a final report, which is called the final engineering report, that documents how the remedy was completed, the final endpoint samples, and then the state issues what's called a certificate of completion, which says that the site has been remediated. And from then that point on, DEC is no longer a part of the project.
Not that we're sure you'll miss us all. And when will phase 2 occur?
So we're still working out the specific timing of it, Senator Kavanaugh, but we expect that it'll start in early 23, probably in the later January or February timeframe, but we're still working that out, and we'll be in dialogue with DEC about that and others, and give everyone ample time before we remobilize to have input.
Okay, that's all really helpful. Do we have any, we're 80 minutes in. We do try to limit this to 90 minutes. Any other comments or questions or issues to address? Ricky Wong is in the chat that they've received 10 odor complaints on the hotline since the inception of remediation, and 4 are duplicative of the 311 calls.
Senator, I have 2 questions.
Please. Okay, go ahead.
So the one, and maybe this is really basic, the blue boxes that are all around the perimeter, what exactly are they checking for? And then I guess the second question is for sort of longer term, does this group continue to convene? Is it a smaller subset to, talk about the possible impacts of having residential, buildings in the area? So things like rat problems and, there's no recycling bins in the area. So those issues, is there going to be a similar working group for that, or is that kind of just something that we talk about amongst ourselves as residents?
So let's first talk about get an answer on the blue boxes. First one.
I'm sure they have a technical term.
I think that might refer to the community air monitoring stations. So there are 6 on-site stations and 3 off-site stations. So that's where all of our equipment is held for the ongoing community monitoring that occurs during excavation.
And that will stay after demobilization or be removed?
Oh, it'll go. We have to air monitor during active soil disturbance activities. Thanks, Paul. I wasn't sure if that was a reference to our equipment or something else.
Okay, so that stuff will be removed. The site will be, there'll be minimal activity. And then at some point, you'll return to the site for phase 2 and presumably bring monitors and all the rest back.
Yes.
Yes. Right, that's a layperson summary.
A camp will be implemented during phase 2 as well.
Okay. And in terms of the other question about, we convened this particularly in response to the concerns about the environmental issues. It sounds like we will have, presumably the, people as the second phase of remediation occurs, they'll be, I think, certainly interested in that and what that means to the community and impacts and all of that. So, without prejudging what people want to do, I would assume there'll be, some room for continuing those conversations in this context. Whether I would like to, if people have thoughts now, we can raise them, but we are close to the end. But I also like to have ongoing further conversations with the community boards and the other elected officials about whether there's some other forum to deal with, like including the community board itself, to deal with, noise and rats and traffic and trucks and all the other things that happen during the course of a routine, construction project. So I don't think we've talked about, I don't think we've talked about the role of this group once the remediation is complete. And I think that's a conversation that's certainly worth having.
Brian, it's Alice Blank from Community Board 1. Hi, how are you? I just want to point out that one of the main concerns that this community board has addressed here, and I want to thank everybody. It's tremendously helpful to have these meetings. And I know we discussed this in light of work that's being done at the borough-based jail. So I know this is not a specific brownfield site, but it is a major environmental impact. And I just want to make sure to highlight that again as we move forward with other projects in our neighborhoods. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, any other comments? I guess that's not a question we need to resolve today, but any other just comments? Okay, any old business, new business, parting words? Is that a wave, Megan, or a question? Okay, that's a, oh, wow, we got the other hand up too now. Go ahead. You're muted. There you go. The mute indicator is off, but we can't hear you.
How about now?
That's better.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, told you I was having my computers fight me all day. So just a quick question, and as it relates to noise for the phase 2, the phase 2 is tied to the foundation and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I think noise might come back into it. So I'm hopeful to have that sort of the sonic thing sorted before that's supposed to start, which I guess from what Adam was saying is late January, early February. So so as far through that, I think the noise I think is going to become a bigger issue, less so than what the pollutants were. That's all I just want to talk about.
Yep. And I think, I think we haven't quite, I think we've gotten a really good routine talking about odors and mercury and some of the environmental issues. I think we need to think our handling of the noise issues has been kind of a work in progress, but yeah, we will hopefully have clarity on what the DEP data shows and how it can be transmitted, which may be a sort of prelude for future phases here. All right. Okay, good. With 4 minutes to spare, again, thank you everybody for your active participation and attention, and everybody's work to make this as smooth and minimize disruption. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.